Well, our first guest on today's Big Blend Radio Champagne Sunday show is author Ken-Dortzbach, and he's joining us to talk about his new romantic comedy. It's called Finding-Hemingway. And this is where he sends his main character on a life-changing adventure. His main character is Callie McGraw. I don't know if she's a relation to Phil McGraw, but anyway, Callie goes on a life-changing adventure after she receives a mysterious phone call from Ernest Hemingway himself. Okay, so we know he's not alive, but apparently he can call her.
Rum.
Yeah, so he gets her to go to Spain, for 6 months. And anyway, so we've got Ken joining us, so he can tell us more about the story. And the book is coming out July 7th, so 1 month from today. But you can pre-order it now. You can do it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but I also encourage you to go to his website, watch the trailer. So it's KenDortzbach.com, and that's Ken, D-O-R-T-Z-B-A-C-H. So KenDortzbach.com. I hope I even said that correctly. Ken, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa and Nancy. It's great to be here, and you said my name perfectly, so that was wonderful. That was wonderful.
Cool. Are you related to anybody in the Candy Empire?
What?
No, although I wish I were.
Yeah, that would come in handy.
That would come in handy, or the Champagne Empire today, I guess, with the champagne toast.
Yeah.
Champagne toast to you and your book, because I know that this is, you say it's technically your first novel, but you've also dabbled in other works as well, a thriller at some point.
Yes.
So I'm interested in that because going from thriller to a romantic comedy is interesting. But champagne toast to you on Finding Hemingway. Did you find him? Don't tell. But what is your toast? We might as well get started with that.
Well, my toast, when I was writing my book, I was constantly reminded of how big a world it is out there, but we all have our small corners of it. So I want to toast to an idea that during these challenging times, I want to toast to the idea of making our small corners of the world just a little bit better every day.
Cool. I like that.
And eventually it'll all run together because we're all connected.
I vote for House
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, Finding Hemingway, it's the first book I've published, but not the first one I tried to write. Nothing's ever easy. And the first book I tried to write was a thriller, but I refer to it as the thriller that wasn't thrilling. It wasn't very good, and I'm still apologizing to people who I made read the book. So I decided for my second book to go in a completely different direction. So I decided to write a book about personal growth and discovery, and I thought that the story just worked better if the main character was a woman. So I jumped into it and went farther and farther, and I hadn't really thought about what genre it was. And then all of a sudden, I realized, okay, this is a women's fiction book, but I just loved the story. I loved the direction. So I figured at a certain point you just have to own it. So I kept going, and I loved how the story worked out.
I love it. I'm reading it right now. And I have to tell you, it is a super fun read, and it makes you think. And I love Callie because she is a Spitfire, and I know that you've got a background in law, so reading her and how she calculates everything. She's she's smart, right? But I love the story, and I immediately feel like it's very visual. It appeals to different senses, it's sensory, and I feel like this already should be a movie. Immediately.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Callie is she's a great heroine. She leans in her professional life, and is definitely an A-type personality, but she's still learning how to open up in relationships, and that's sort of her Achilles heel. So during the course of the story, she learns how to open up and I guess lean with her heel and her heart, and learn how to make herself a little bit vulnerable in relationships. In one point of the story, she talks about how often people want the power to fly, but being a lawyer, she often reads the fine print. She said sometimes the power to fly doesn't include the power to land. That costs extra. And so in her relationship, she feels, it's exhilarating, it's exciting, but it's also a little scary. But that's kind of how love feels, and so she comes to terms with that, and you follow along with her as she does.
And so, I also enjoy the beginning where she talks about the vulnerability is how books are an escape, and how she, as a teenager wanted to be like, the cool kid who knew, geek out on all the literature and everything. And her favorite book was The Sun Also Rises, including the movie. And The Sun Also Rises, it's interesting how she, figured out this is more about getting to know who you are more than drinking wine and traveling Spain. But it is that, self-discovery part, but how it was an escape for her, but it's interesting because it kind of, the book is just even where I'm at, kind of going full circle in that, I think, with where she was as a teenager to a grown woman about to embark on another part of her life.
Yes, well, the book The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, I mean, it's a classic, and she started reading it when she was in middle school, and her parents, they go through a nasty divorce, and so it's tough for her, and she uses the book sort of as an escape, and she imagines escaping to Spain, even though she doesn't until later, but it's sort of the book gives her strength, and then she literally does kind of escape to Spain. In my book, the basic premise for her is that she's got 6 months between jobs and a hefty severance check, so she's not rich, but she's comfortable, and she, as you mentioned, she literally gets a call on her cell phone in the middle of Manhattan from Ernest Hemingway, the author of her very favorite book. And so he convinces her basically to go to Spain and kind of becomes her life coach for 6 months. And so she learns about love and life and herself. And she also learns how to run with the bulls in Pamplona. So, and you'll get to run along with her.
Now, wait, I heard that you've done that.
Yeah. Yes, that was maybe ill-advised, but that was a number of years ago. And Pamplona is up in northern Spain, and they have this most marvelous festival for about 10 days in early July. And it's actually a very family-friendly event where there's food and music, except, around 8 o'clock in the morning every day, they run a bunch of bulls through the streets. So But you can you don't have to run with the bulls. They set up all these fences, and you can watch safely on the other side of the fence. But what you do during the festival, you first of all, everybody wears these white outfits, and you tie a red sash around your waist as a belt, and you have a red handkerchief. And then every morning they set up the barriers, and they get there are 6 bulls and 6 steer that they run through the streets, and you can spread out on the cobblestone, and they fire off these bottle rockets basically, which signifies that the bulls are going to run, and you don't really see them till they're right there, and you the bulls are big, but the real surprise is how fast they are and how close they get to you. That was something I probably should have thought through a little bit better before I actually did it. Well, we have a pasture with cows behind us in where we're staying right now. And the other day, the cows and their calves got together and they're racing across the field. I was like, man, what's going on? They chased a cat. And the cat ran. I was like, no, that's funny. I was like, and then you see them dip their heads down. The one with the horns, there's 2 with horns.
Yeah, the bull.
And so he's dipping his head down. I'm like, man, cat, you better run because he's coming at you. It was pretty impressive.
Well, usually the bulls, when they're running through the streets, they just kind of want to get to the end at the stadium. But the locals, often they're at the beginning of the run, and they like to run just ahead of the bulls and wave a rolled-up newspaper in the faces of the bulls, which doesn't seem like a good idea to me. I know.
No.
And then they kind of run past them, and then they get to the tourists and the people who don't do this normally, and you just again have to try to remember that they're not looking for you, the run up to the stadium. It's the Calle Estafeta, and it's this long uphill run. And if you stand on there, you can't see the bulls coming, but you can see the people watching for the bulls, and you know the bulls are getting there because people start jumping up to see over the heads of everybody else. So it's almost like popcorn popping as the bulls come running up, and then they just go whooshing past you, and it just sucks all the air out of the street. And at that place, actually, you have a lot of 4-story and 5-story buildings that run into each other. So there's no place you can really get away. And you have all these hundreds of people out on the balconies cheering and drinking wine. And it's marvelously fun, but a little crazy.
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
You know, I got chased by a bull.
Yeah,
when we lived in Kenya when I was a little kid. I totally got chased by a bull. And then again in southern Arizona, there was like, I don't know, but wherever we go, I'm actually known for it. For every time we go hiking or something, I find the cows and the bulls. For some reason, there they are. It's a very odd thing. But Nancy finds the squirrels. Our friend Rondi, we go hiking with, always finds bobcat, something to do with bobcat, and I find the bulls. So I don't know if I'm a bull. I don't want to say it. But
you're a bull magnet.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. That's I don't want a bunch of bull in my life, but you know, sometimes it just happens. You know.
Well,
but
I have good news for you then, because I have good news for you because you don't have to run with the bulls if you go to Pamplona. They also have spectacular food and wine, and in early July, they open up the cafes so the windows are wide open and the doors are wide open, and they have the most marvelous smelling food and the ham and the cheese, and the weather is perfect. It's hot. It's this beautiful Spanish hot. So you can sit there and eat your tapas and wash it down with ice cold beer, and you can do that rather than running with the bulls. You don't have to run with them.
Well, running, I don't know if anyone wants to see me run, but I am very interested in micro theater. This is something completely new to me. That this is something that happens in Spain. Can you tell people about it? Because I'm sure others don't know. Like I had no idea this existed.
Yes, in the book, the characters experience all kinds of different things involving art or theater in Spain. And one of the things that actually started in Spain is called microtheater, and it's spread across a lot of Latin America, both in Europe and South America, and also I think there's one in Miami. But microtheater is basically 15-minute plays for 15 audience members at a time in a small, like 15 by 15 square meter theater. And so you could go to like 4 or 5 of these in a night. The facility will have all these small theaters set up, and you can just kind of go from show to show, and you pay a few dollars for each one. I know, it's fantastic. And so the characters in my book, they go to see several micro plays at the microtheater, and it's great fun.
Wow. Awesome.
Now, you know, and I love the whole thing that this is a setting of Spain. I think it brings this you know, you're talking about, you know, the heat and the warmth, the summer warmth, and I feel like it's just a warm book, and I feel like with the season coming up, this is going to be like the perfect beach read if we're allowed to go to the beach, or, you know, sit outside in your yard with it and read and enjoy it. But I think that it's really cool when you get to explore a country this way and go from a perspective of, you know, like Callie, because she's interesting. You know, she's kind of fearless, but she's got her, you know, inhibitions too. But she's kind of like she's like, what the heck? If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. So it's interesting reading her perspective. But I also feel like this could be a fantastic book for book clubs. Is that something you're looking at doing once the book is released on July 7th?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's perfect for book clubs because there's so much you can dig into, and you don't just you know, read about the characters doing things, but I try to give the feeling of Spain, if you will, because I mean, Spanish culture is just a warm, exciting culture.
Yeah.
There's a phrase in there that I use in the book that's a Spanish phrase. It's called El Duende, which doesn't really translate exactly into English, but it's something along the lines of, you know, El Duende is kind of in the soul. It's passionate. It's the heat and the fire of art and creating. And one of the characters talks about flamenco dancing and how it's rich
in El Duende. So they go to a flamenco dancing club and experience that and the energy and the power. And it's so hopefully the book doesn't just convey places, but also just the spirit of Spain,
the vibe,
and the excitement of Spain. Exactly.
So
it does.
I want to know why your main character is a woman. You know, I'm always interested. It seems to me women pick males as their main characters a lot of times, and men always pick women. It's odd.
I don't. It just kind of fit together really well, and she just seemed to be an exciting person. And I you know, when you write a book, sometimes you know where the end point's going to be, but you don't know all the pieces along the way. It's sort of like starting a jigsaw puzzle, and maybe you do the frame of, and it might be a rectangle. And then you get into it and say, well, I'm going to add this or that. And so maybe you add on a little annex to the side. So it's like the shape of Utah or whatever. So you're never quite sure exactly what it's going to look like as you fill in all the pieces. But the concept of Callie just seemed to be interesting. And, again, the idea that she's successful, even though she's between jobs, she knows that she has a fantastic job in 6 months. I also thought it was just kind of an interesting thought experiment, and it's something your listeners can think through too. It's like, just imagine if you had 6 months between jobs and you had enough money, and let's just say you didn't have any family limitations. What would you do? So now, for your audience members, don't just yell it out because this is radio. We can't hear you, but still, you can think
go ahead,
through
yell
what.
it.
Yeah, go ahead and yell it.
Go ahead, yell it. Come on.
But it's a little bit of escapism. If you had that freedom, what would you do? And so she goes to Spain, and of course she has a Nobel Prize laureate, Pulitzer Prize winning author who's coaching her along the way. That doesn't happen for everybody, but still, it's kind of interesting just to how that all kind of comes together, and we watch her just kind of pick her way through those 6 months and learn about herself.
Now, did you have any women in your life read this and go, that's not what Callie would do, or kind of help you along with the female perspective?
I wouldn't say that I necessarily had coaching. I mean, I did work with an editor, and so she gave me advice here and there and stuff like that. But, it's kind of an interesting dynamic if you're a man writing a women's fiction novel, but I'm not, some writers like to tell people things. And I think in my book, it's not really that way, but I pose questions and people can decide what they think about things for themselves. So I kind of step back from that and just try to tell a good story with good characters. Now it's interesting because she meets a number of characters along the way, and there's a guy from Spain and a guy from France and a guy from the United States, and so there's also a woman from Canada, and they kind of weave in and out of the story and kind of help challenge her in different ways, and she challenges them. So you have this interesting mix of characters as she travels through Spain. She starts in Barcelona, goes to Madrid, goes to Pamplona, and then back to Madrid. So you get to kind of travel, and there's some other day trips along the way, and so each location kind of plays a role and kind of helps influence her a little bit as she's on her journey.
Cool.
It kind of reminds me of, when I don't know if it happens now, but when, we graduated high school, and this was way back when I was back in South Africa when I graduated. And back then it would be, especially, and guys would try to do it too. Otherwise they had to go to mandatory army for 2 years. But there was always this thing of, before you go to college, go backpack around Europe. And I know, people that have done that from this country too, and in England, and it's kind of that thing. I don't know if it's being done anymore, but all kinds, I've always been traveling anyway, so that didn't happen with me. I went to work with Nancy on the magazine, but everyone that came back, they got up to mischief, but they also grew. And but I've been traveling since a very young age, all over. And to me, that travel is always about that. It's about the journey. It is about the people you meet. It is about discovering your strengths, your weaknesses, and trying to boost your weaknesses into strengths and handling situations. So I think there's something really appealing about the travel part, but it is kind of like that college escape where you discover of yourself some more. So did you do any of that when you before college or after college, when you said, hey, I'm going out backpacking for a couple years or a year?
I did that. I did a backpacking trip after college, and I also did one after law school. And it was a fantastic experience exploring, and sometimes things went right and sometimes they went wrong. I remember one time I got on the train going to the wrong country, and I had the wrong train ticket, and I didn't have any local currency. Now, Lisa, Nancy, do you guys speak Czech?
No.
I don't know if you speak any Czech, because I didn't either, and I think that's kind of where the problem started.
Yeah.
So, but you figure those things out, as a detail. So you.
Yeah.
But it is a great way to explore, and I assume people, maybe not this summer, but people still do that, and that kind of started for me. It started a love for travel. And it's kept with me all my life. So whether working or not working, just seeing different parts of the world. You had a wonderful musician from Bangalore on several weeks ago, and I've been to Bangalore a number of times, and it's sort of like the Silicon Valley of yes, and that's sort of like the Silicon Valley of India. It's a spectacular city with wonderful food and stuff. So it's really inspired a love of travel, and so that led me to travel to Spain a number of times, and hopefully that helped influence my writing to help bring it to life, so that if you read the book, you feel like you're in Spain as well.
Yeah, you really do capture that, because you can tell when someone hasn't been to where they're writing about. You know what I mean? It's the same thing as an artist painting and wildlife, but they're painting from the zoo, and the lion is fat instead of, kind of
it's wrong color.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
So it's very realistic, and a very easy to read book. Very easy to read.
Well, thank you. It's those little details that sometimes add the texture to the experience. So when you read the chapter about the bulls in Pamplona, I'm not giving anything away, but hopefully you feel like you're running with the bulls and have the same excitement. That's the idea. I will.
I do want to touch
Lisa,
on.
Let's go run with the bulls across the pasture here tonight.
Okay. Fine. I'll film it. You run. I'll film it.
Good.
Ernest Hemingway, how did he become such a part of this? I mean, it's and how did the whole thing about Ernest Hemingway call her and say, come to Spain? How did that idea come to fruition for you?
It was probably when I was having a bottle of wine one night. I don't know. It just kind of popped into my head. But I've always loved his books, and particularly The Sun Also Rises. And, there's sort of this concept of escape in it. But, when the book takes place, it was shortly after World War I, and Ernest Hemingway was kind of escaping himself when he went to Spain and France and was writing the book. And so all the pieces just kind of fit together for me. And it just seemed like a perfect backdrop for a story where someone has 6 months to kind of sort of find themselves, if you will. So it came together wonderfully. But, one other way that people can, I try to make the book real for people is I like to cook. I'm not a very good cook, but I like to cook. And so I've been trying to cook my way through the book, because there are a number of dishes that I describe that the characters eat. And so I've been trying to cook them and take pictures and post the recipes on my social media. So chorizo, fried chorizo and fresh herbs, or patatas bravas that you could make in your oven, where you have the aioli, the garlic mayonnaise sauce, and then the brava sauce that you could make at home. And brava sauce is sort of like crushed tomatoes with like red wine vinegar and paprika, sort of like ketchup on steroids. And the other thing I'm just about to post is there's this marvelous black olive and rosemary crumble that you could make, that you could put on lamb or chicken or eggplant if you're a vegetarian, or pasta or whatever. So I've been posting those, and that's directly from the book. So I'm just kind of working my way through that so people can have fun with that as well. And actually they can eat their way through the book too.
Well, if it's got black olives, I'm in.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in.
Well, now have you made paella, like that big dish full of paella before?
I need to try that. That one is kind of a heavy lift. Paella plays a big role actually in the story because the characters make it. Although I do have a good paella story. My paella, you make it in this special low pan. It's basically this marvelous rice dish when you can put vegetables and protein on it. And many years ago, I actually lived and worked in Germany for several years. And several blocks from our apartment, they had this marvelous Spanish restaurant where you could get carry-out paella. And so they would give it to you in this pan, and the pan's not cheap, and you would carry it home, and you would eat it at home.
Oh.
And then they had this honor system where you would wash out the pan and hang on to it, and then the next time that you would call them up for carry-out paella, you'd bring back the empty, clean pan, and you'd swap it out for this fresh pan of hot piping paella that you walk home. And it was really cool. You just hang onto the pan, and they trusted you. And actually, it was a little bit sad because 2 nights before we left Germany, I had to go back and show up unannounced with this empty, clean pan and say I was just dropping off that night. And so it was kind of a farewell because I wasn't able to pick up any more paella. But it was
bummer.
Yeah, so I have wonderful memories of paella, and so I weave that into the book as well because the characters cook some paella, and it's kind of fun. That's a fun chapter.
Because of the it being in Spain and the food and the wine and everything and just the temperature, it kind of takes us back to last year. We spent some time in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We've done a lot in southern Arizona. In fact, some of the parks we've covered actually talk about the whole history of food and how when the Spanish came up, the royal roads and everything came up through America to claim it as, New Spain. It's really interesting to hear how the food changed, how a tortilla is and a taco and everything, how they changed because it kind of blended what the Native American culture and the Mexican culture and bring Spain coming in and saying, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to bring these spices. So it's kind of this interesting thing for me. And I was wondering, I know you love food and wine too and travel. Have you traveled out in the Southwest here at all and experienced some of those changes in food that come from the Spanish?
I have some. I mean, I've been through New Mexico and Arizona, and I love driving through Colorado. It's kind of interesting where you do kind of get this interesting blend of Mexico and the Spanish influence from where they were out there as well, and I have family down in Texas, and so you kind of have this interesting combination. I mean, for example, there were not a lot of people know that there were a lot of German settlers in Texas, 150 years ago. And so they were the ones that I think kind of, they didn't have corn tortillas, they had flour tortillas, and that was something they were big into. So that was kind of their influence and started a lot of breweries. And so you have all this interesting combination of cultures. That's kind of one thing that's kind of neat about that part of the country because they all kind of collide together to create magnificent food.
It's true. The food. I think the food thing really, breaking bread, and having conversation is really great. Over a dinner table or picnic bench, wherever. But there's something about how the history of food and how cultures have united over food and created new food. I geek out on it. It's really cool. And yeah, Texas. That's how we listen to the local radio stations, and you can totally tell. And look how the music's changed. We've got Norteño music, that oompa oompa, and the oompa oompa bands of Texas. I know it's very South African, and there's a huge South African community in Texas too.
Yes, there is.
It's kind of the whole thing is interesting to me about how we move and travel around and we garner these ingredients and these recipes and these just new ways of life and share them. It's exciting. Did you live in Spain at all? Because I know you've lived all different places. Is that a place that you lived or just tend to go back a lot?
I didn't live in Spain, but I did travel extensively there and all around Europe and to all kinds of different countries. I just Spanish culture was just one of the cultures I really enjoyed, and so it just kind of fit together with the book and everything. And you also have these different subcultures in a country as small as Spain too. I mean, you've got the Catalonia around Barcelona is different. You know, Barcelona's traditionally been more of a European city, whereas Madrid traditionally has been more like stereotypically Spanish. You know, and then you go up to the north. Where, you know, near Pamplona, where, you know, the Basque country, where the cuisine changes and it becomes complex, but also kind of like robust and bolder. And so you can see the differences in the different regions, even in a country like as small as Spain. I personally, I love reading cookbooks. And there's a chapter in my book where the characters are talking about if they could write a book, what kind of book would they write? And one of the characters says that they would write a cookbook. Because you know, when you're cooking for someone, you're literally giving them life, and you can love them through food, and you can tell a story through the recipes in the cookbook. So I love reading through different cookbooks from different regions with different cuisines. I think it's great fun.
It is. It's cool. I want to ask you this now. So if you're going to have a dinner party, okay, who would you invite? You can invite someone from your book. But who else would you invite? Would you invite Hemingway and serve him food? You'd have to give him a lot of cocktails.
Rum. You got to drink rum. You got to have rum.
And you're gonna. I know this isn't. Who would come to your dinner party? Like, you're gonna throw a dinner party. Anyone can. You know, the live or passed on thing is what we always talk about, because who knows? Once we pass on, maybe we do. Maybe we do go and our dreams are real. Who knows, right? There's that little magic side I know you enjoy. So if you're gonna hold a dinner party, where are you gonna hold it? Who are you inviting, and what are you serving? And we need to know if it's wine or cocktails, or both.
Well, the answer is yes. It would definitely be both. And I think Ernest Hemingway would be a fantastic guest. You know, I like figures from history, like someone like Abraham Lincoln or George Washington or Thomas Jefferson would be fantastic dinner guests. And you know, maybe some type of a musician too, because that would be pretty entertaining. I don't know, maybe somebody like Mozart would be fantastic, because then you'd have entertainment. So that would be kind of an interesting group. I assume that they would blend pretty well, something like that. And then, but with Hemingway and plenty of cocktails and plenty of wine. I want to have multiple courses. But I don't know if it would be a good idea if I did the cooking. I might have somebody else do the cooking.
See, now, okay, but is Callie a child? You're not going to. Yeah. What about Callie? Does she get to come?
Callie would be a great guest. Well, especially if she were there with Hemingway. In the book, she's a lot of fun, and she's a great conversationalist. So she would be definitely very entertaining. No doubt. Who would you invite to your dinner?
Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Donald Trump.
Oh boy! You could never.
That would be an
questions.
Interesting mix.
And just sit and drink.
That would be. Oh my gosh, that would be cool. That would be cool. I think I would have to invite Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin with Bob Dylan.
Oh, cool.
And and then they'd have to have a jam session. So I would, those three. I'd have to invite. But then, no, I can't, because then I start tripping out and going down. This would have to be a big party, and somebody else would have to cater it, because otherwise everyone's just getting pizza and wine, homemade pizza. I can
Nothing
do that.
wrong with that.
Yeah, I think, and Anthony Bourdain has to be there.
Yeah.
There you go. Or
then
you could bring Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney.
Now, if you invited Iggy Pop, now that would be an interesting dinner party.
That would be a fun thing.
Yes. Could you imagine Iggy Pop and Jimi Hendrix and Janis talking? Oh my God! Yeah, that's
Tell
right.
him to leave his shirt on. Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
No.
He won't.
No, he's free, man. He wants to be free.
He doesn't like shirts, apparently.
No, but he loves chairs. So his thing now, he keeps buying chairs, and he sits in a different chair every single day. Outside, he has all this chair collection.
That's
So,
weird.
like,
Really?
I'd ask him to bring the chairs for the dinner the dinner party.
For the guests.
I know.
So from punk rock icon to chair collector. I like that.
That's
There's a book
so
in there somewhere,
weird.
I think.
Yeah. Well, look at Bob
There's a
Dylan,
book
man.
idea.
He's an iron worker. He does all the iron work on these big gates and everything. He's really. I think that there's talent. There's always multiple talents that people have, and I think it's great when look at Grace Slick as an artist. Joni Mitchell is an artist. And I find this interesting too, which brings me to my next thing. Having this world of law is your career and going into writing, I find this very fascinating that just about every lawyer I know wants to write, and Hemingway happens to be at the top. Even Ward Heinrichs, who's on our show, he's our employment attorney that comes on all the time, and he wants that's his second thing. He says, I want to be a writer, and Hemingway's his idol for that. So I find this interesting.
It's respect for the written word. I mean, law is all about the written word.
And the devil in the details.
It is, although it's a very different type of writing. When you're writing a legal brief or something like that, or a contract, you have to be very precise and meticulous. And so if you're trying to write a novel, you really have to switch gears. So you're trying to be descriptive, and the cadence is different than the very precise clarity that you have to use when trying to write as a lawyer. So that actually was a real challenge, to try to shift gears and put myself in a different frame of mind, although it was a fascinating exercise. But it's also interesting when you're writing a novel. If you're writing as a lawyer, if you have a brief, there's a deadline and there's a due date. But if you're writing a novel, sometimes you don't have a deadline. You just keep writing and writing and improving, and eventually you have to figure out, okay, how do I finish this? How do I get this to completion? So it's a challenge, but I had great fun writing the book, and it was a journey. The last thing I'll say on that is, if you are going to write a book, tell people you're going to write a book, because they will ask you about it, which is wonderful, and it always encourages you to keep going, because they're like, "Aren't you done with that book yet?" It's like, almost. So I even put some of that in my acknowledgement, that I really appreciate all the people that asked about my book, because it kind of kept me going to finish it off and get it done.
Cool.
That's hard, because Nancy, you always say that with art. Like, Nancy's a wildlife artist primarily, but there's always the time to stop painting. Otherwise, you're going to ruin the creation.
Overpainting. Yeah.
Absolutely. But just the journey in doing that is fun in and of itself. Just to expand your mind and challenge yourself and bring that out. And so whether you're painting, I'm not good at art, but with the writing, it just expands you and pulls you in places that you didn't expect to go. And hopefully the people that see your art or read your art or listen to your art feel the same way.
Are you going to do more?
Yes, I'm definitely going to write another book. I mean,
Cool.
now I'm just focusing on getting this one out. So I'm going to see how it goes. Maybe there'll be a sequel. No spoilers there, but maybe there'll be a sequel to Finding Hemingway. But I've got some other ideas.
And the movie.
So I'm going to. And the movie, yes. Well, let's have a movie or a series. It lends itself to both. I think it would be fun. So you can binge watch Finding Hemingway.
Yeah, but this is it. We were talking about the dinner party, right? Where was that Italian restaurant we used to go to in Encinitas, California? Nancy, Gino's, I think. And he would have this movie night, and you'd watch. It was called The Big Dinner or The Big Night or something, and he would serve food that went with the movie, and we'd watch the movie and eat.
Yeah,
that's
so
what
cool.
I see happening with yours.
Yeah.
Start with the wine tasting, into the dinner while you're watching the movie, and everybody takes the book home, or reads the book first. I don't know. There's like a thing with this. And there's music. Are you going to put a playlist together? A music I want my mixtape that goes with it.
Well, I could definitely do a playlist with Spanish music, and then I could build the menu around Spanish food. So I mentioned we could start with the fried chorizo and then the goat cheese tarts. maybe some asparagus wrapped in Serrano ham, and then maybe move to some scallops soaking in sherry ginger vinaigrette or something like that. So we could piece together. There you go. So I'm kind of getting hungry, actually. I didn't think this interview is making me hungry.
I know. It's like, okay, this is tasting good. Have you been to the Jamón Museum? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, in Madrid.
I haven't been to that one, but
there's a place with all these big things of ham hanging down.
Oh my gosh.
No, I haven't been to that one, but many of the cafes will just have like rows and rows of cured ham hanging there, which just smells fantastic, and it's like its own work of art. But
I might have the wrong name on it. Yeah, I might have the wrong name, because a lot of our travel writers have been to Spain, Madrid. I know Hillary, she's done Catalonia. She fell in love with Catalonia. Like, she's got a thing about it, and the wine. That's her thing. And, every time you see everything, the Basque region and everything, you're just like, man, the Spanish are living good. So it's a good life. Good quality.
They have a lust for life. Well, and the wonderful things about Spanish culture. I mean, often we'll do things that we're supposed to do, and we'll try to eat right or exercise or whatever, save money and all that stuff. But in Spanish, they have a wonderful ability to live in the moment, and not in a reckless way or anything, but just in a really fun way. And so that's part of the thing that I try to convey in the book, is that to get into the Spanish culture and the enjoyment of going out to eat and enjoying art and music and dancing. And so when you read the book, sometimes you want to do things because you want to do them, not because you're supposed to. It's something you're passionate about, and sometimes you just want to be a little Spanish. So
and that's the thing with Callie and her art, the love of art. I'd like to go to Spain just for that. Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing. The art.
Well, that's Callie. She enjoys practicing law very much, but her first love was art. And in fact, when she graduated from college, she wanted to work in an art museum. She wanted to get an internship, like a really good internship, the type of internship that as I read in the book, that'll get your parents' hopes up about you. And actually, she doesn't get one of those. She ends up interning for an intern at an art museum. So her job is to make coffee runs for someone who makes coffee runs. And it was sort of a dead end, but she stayed with it for 6 months. But she jokes in the book that like many of us after college, she wasn't necessarily making good life choices at the time, but she persevered and still entertains a love for art while at the same time practicing law and working on her career. So that's actually working out for her just fine.
Yeah, well, she's a strong character, and you really do connect with her immediately as you read. And I appreciate Finding Hemingway. I hope everyone enjoys it. Again, you can pre-order it through Barnes & Noble and Amazon, or you can go to Ken's website, Ken-Dortzbach, and that's Dortzbach, Ken-Dortzbach, and he's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, so you can follow him there and keep up with his cooking. So that's awesome. I love what you're doing on that. I'm just waiting for the playlist now, because then we could have the playlist that goes, the song and the recipe all together. That's
cool.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I love that idea. That's what I'm going to do next. I got to post something on that.
Yeah.
No,
fun.
The music and the recipe. Yeah, we pair music with road trips, like certain areas. Like, stop, we got to change the music, because this part is Hendrix. Iggy Pop goes to the beach in the desert. He goes anywhere. He can, we're just the passengers. Ha ha ha. All right. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Ken. It's been a true pleasure. A fun conversation, fun read. Again, the book, July 7th. Everyone, go get it. And listen, enjoy the travels. And I'm going to start following you on cooking, so I can. I can't cook, but I can sure enjoy watching people cook, and then just
I didn't say a word.
Eating it. I know. You're good.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa and Nancy, for having me on your show. This is great fun.
You take care, and when you do another book, you know where to call us. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.